Hey everybody, welcome back to Historical-ish. This is episode 11, the first half of tier 6 of the Ancient Mysteries Iceberg. Before we get started, I just want to remind y'all we did make a Discord server. Come chat and hang out with us. It's been a lot of fun getting to hear everybody's theories and perspectives on a lot of these topics and a lot of stuff that we haven't covered. In there we discuss future video topics among various other things, so definitely feel free to check it out. But not to waste too much of y'all's time, I appreciate y'all watching, and let's get into it. Number 1, Adam's Calendar. Adam's Calendar might be the oldest man-made structure in the world that we know of. Although the dating is highly disputed, some people believe that the stone structure known as the Stonehenge of Africa is over 300,000 years old. Others believe that it's only 400 years old and that the stones that weigh 5.5 tons were put there to keep cattle in a circle. The man who discovered it had to make an emergency landing while flying, and he crashed his plane into the side of a cliff, then discovering these huge stones in South Africa. It was called Adam's Calendar because the ancient megalithic site appears to track the cardinal directions, seasons, equinoxes, and solstices, and even some major constellations, and obviously because of the apparent extreme age of this site. It consists of an outer stone circle that's about 98 feet in diameter, and there are many complex patterns and astronomical alignments within it. There are many other stone circles and roads, as archaeologists claim, around this particular site too, meaning that it was part of an overall site and possibly even a town or city. The two main stones in the middle of the site do have carvings on them, but I really couldn't find any conclusions of what they are meant to be or what they represent. But they do note that the stones were not carved there, they were transported from somewhere else. Which, if that's the case, and this site is 300,000 years old, that raises some huge questions in our accepted historical timeline. And there are some interesting connections to Egypt too. Both civilizations had a fascination with the cosmos, specifically Orion's belt, and they also both knew of the equinoxes and solstices. Another really interesting find is that some people report that the stones and rock formations that make up the calendar resonate sound frequencies. And apparently these sound frequencies resonate in the form of a flower, which I have no idea personally what that looks like or how that would work. But if you know anything about sacred geometry, that detail might make you a little bit excited. Some other people, obviously similar to the people who believe in the ley lines, think that this site might have conducted electricity. Obviously there's no proof of that yet, and of course it also draws to another connection of Egypt. Overall, regardless of any claims of electricity or sound frequencies, it's a really fascinating structure, and I really do hope that we see some more archaeology and research behind it. Number 2, the Baigong Pipes. The Baigong Pyramid Pipes are a collection of massive iron pipes that have been dated to 150,000 years old in the Qinghai province of China. The pipes are found near a mysterious pyramid of Mount Baigong, in which the pipes are held within caves found inside the structure. They are also found on the shore and at the bottom of a nearby lake bed, and scientists believe that the iron pipes were used to transport water from the lake to the pyramid. According to history, settled humans have only occupied the area for 30,000 years. Before that, only nomads were in the region. But there are so many pipes, and they are so complex, that it's pretty much been ruled impossible that anyone outside of modern humans today could have built them. But, again, they date back to 150,000 years ago. The Chinese Academy of Social Sciences isn't even ruling the possibility of ancient aliens in their research of the sites. The most widely accepted theory is that they were part of a larger structure that was left over by a prehistoric human civilization that abandoned the site, and the technology used to create it has been lost to time. What's really interesting too is that the scientists can't exactly determine what combination of material the pipes were made out of. At least 8% of the material has not been identified. And there's another theory that it's basically calling these pipes super fossilized tree roots. But they are iron, so not sure the connection there, but I think we can doubt that conclusion. But yeah, this raises a ton of questions when thinking about how old the pyramid and these iron pipes are. Just like many other items on this list, it shows how advanced humans could have possibly been in the distant past. Number 3, human-made ditches in the Amazon rainforest. So there are around 450 earthworks or geoglyphs that have been found recently in the Amazon rainforest. The ditches range in size from around 11 yards wide and around 4 yards deep in general, and the sites are roughly 100 to 300 yards across. As deforestation started in the 1980s, hundreds of these appear when you remove the trees from the landscape. Scientists claim that they are only 1 to 2,000 years old, being formed in the Amazonian formative period, where other Amazon societies were also creating landmarks and natural sites all over the rainforest. What's interesting, though, is that the archaeologists don't think that there were ancient village sites because there hasn't been a single piece of evidence found that suggests there was any cultural material associated with the sites. The most likely theory is that they were created for ceremonial purposes, like important annual events or societal events like births, marriages, and deaths. I will say that the perfect geometry of the sites somewhat supports this idea. But in general, we don't know where these people lived. We have no other evidence of civilization outside of these sites. But most of these sites were located 180 to 230 yards above sea level, away from any large rivers, lakes, or anything that would allow any civilization or small society to flourish in such a harsh environment. So generally, all we know is that these people built impressive structures within the rainforest without actually living there. So why would they do that? We just don't really know. And I do want to mention this one thing that I found that was really interesting. It's not on the iceberg, but essentially there are some theories out there that the entire Amazon was actually man-made. They think that the entire Amazon used to be the home of a massive civilization. People have flown over the rainforest with LiDAR or some sort of other radar technology and have been able to map out big portions of the rainforest floor. And a ton of structures that appear to also be man-made have been found. If you're interested in hearing more about this, I think it's a really interesting theory. So let me know in the comments if you want us to do a particular video about this. Number 4, Rujm el-Hiri. Rujm el-Hiri is a megalithic monument located in the Golan Heights region of Israel. It is also known as the Stonehenge of the Levant. Another Stonehenge. Obviously, this is due to the circular shape and the large number of standing stones that make up the structure. The monument is thought to have been built around the 3rd millennium BC by the ancient Semitic peoples who lived in the area. Rujm el-Hiri consists of a circular enclosure with a diameter of about 105 meters, surrounded by 4 stone walls. The walls are made up of large, carefully carved stones that are arranged in a precise pattern. The walls are approximately 1.5 meters high and are connected by stone gates. Inside the enclosure, there are several small circles made up of standing stones, as well as several burial mounds. The purpose of Rujm el-Hiri is not entirely clear, but it is thought to have been used for religious or ceremonial purposes. Some have suggested that it was a site for astronomical observations, while others believe that it was used for tribal gatherings or as a burial ground. Whatever its original purpose, Rujm el-Hiri is an impressive example of architectural and engineering skills of the ancient Semitic people. The monument was rediscovered in the early 20th century by a group of French archaeologists who were conducting surveys in the area. Since then, it has been the subject of several excavations and studies, which have helped to shed light on its history and significance. Despite its age, Rujm el-Hiri is still in remarkably good condition. The stones are well preserved, and the overall structure of the monument remains intact. This is thanks in part to the dry and arid climate of the Golan Heights, which has helped to preserve the monument over the millennia. Rujm el-Hiri is now a protected archaeological site and is open to the public for visits and tours. It's an important part of the region's cultural heritage and is considered a valuable resource for understanding the history and culture of the ancient Semitic people. Just like all the other Stonehenges of whatever place they're located in, there's not much more that we can really know about these unless we were to rewind time and go ask the people who created them. Number 5, the structure under the Sea of Galilee. So there's a monumental stone structure that's 60,000 tons and cone-shaped at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. The mound is made of basalt boulders and is about 32-ish feet high and 230 feet wide, which makes it roughly twice the diameter of Stonehenge. Another Stonehenge reference. It was revealed in 2003 by a sonar survey of the lake, and it almost looks like a giant burial mound. Since the structure is shaped in a way that's not found in nature, researchers concluded that the structure is in fact man-made, and they are dating it to about 4,000 years old. The reason they date it to this is because of other megalithic sites around the area, which were all constructed during this time frame. The structure was likely built before the lake saw rising water levels, but either way, it's very impressive that the society was able to organize these stones and create this huge structure. Obviously, since it's underwater, it's very hard to study, and we don't exactly know why it was built yet, which leaves this structure still a mystery. Number 6. The Tophet at Carthage. Ancient Carthage was a city in modern-day Tunisia on the north coast of Africa that was founded more than 2 millennia ago. It was established by the Phoenicians, an ancient civilization of shipbuilders and traders from the eastern end of the Mediterranean. It reached its peak in the 4th century BC and was one of the largest cities in the world. As the center of the Carthaginian Empire, it was a major power in the ancient world. Carthage was a significant rival to Rome, and the two rival civilizations were at war for over a century before Rome's victory and the destruction of Carthage in 146 BC. One of the aspects of Carthaginian culture that was lost with the city's destruction was the Tophet. The Tophet was a sacred site located outside of the city where young children were buried. In recent years, the Tophet has become the subject of historical controversy, as evidence suggests that some of the children buried there were the result of child sacrifices. The word Tophet originates from the Hebrew Tophet, meaning an open area for sacrifice or a place of burning. They were prevalent in the eastern Mediterranean in the early 8th century BC. The term is referenced in the Hebrew Bible as a religious ceremony performed in Jerusalem that involved passing a child through the fire. This is believed to refer to child sacrifice, which is condemned by the Bible. The Tophet found near the ruins of Carthage has shown no signs of adult graves, and many of the grave markers are dedicated to Baal and Tanit, the patron gods of Carthage. Roman sources also attest to child sacrifice among the Carthaginians centuries after the Jews. However, it is acknowledged that the Roman sources are biased when it comes to Carthage, which obviously was their long-term enemy. The Tophet of Carthage was excavated between 1930 and 1970, revealing the bodies of young infants buried in small vaults with beads, amulets, and even small animals. In later periods, sandstone markers were found buried above the original layer of graves, and these markers were covered with stucco-colored yellow, red, or blue. Above the graves, narrow limestone grave markers appear, inscribed and decorated with the gods Baal and Tanit. There are references to places of child sacrifices in Jewish and Christian writings. The Roman writer Diodorus Siculus described the sacrifice of upper-class children to the deity Baal in 310 BC, which is often quoted as the main evidence for child sacrifice during this period. However, some of the descriptions made by writers, including those made in the 19th century, include metal fire pits in the shape of a god, with grates that tipped infants into the fire. These descriptions may be a little out there and could skew the actual history of this. These sacrifices were said to be used to appease the deities or to ask for favors from the gods. This is supported by some of the inscriptions found in the Tophet. Some sources suggest that small animals replaced the infants as sacrifices in later years. However, in general, many historians argue that the evidence for child sacrifice is inconclusive, pointing out that the archaeological evidence is sparse and that the text may have been written with ulterior motives, such as Rome's hostile feelings towards Carthage throughout their wars. The textual evidence is only found in Roman sources, and while the biblical sources confirm the concept of the Tophet, they do not mention Carthage at all. So overall, pretty interesting concept, but it could be a case of where the victors write the history. Number 7. Why did the Cucuteni-Trypillian culture burn down their houses? The Cucuteni-Trypillian culture was an ancient civilization that lived in present-day Moldova and Romania around 5400 BC to 2700 BC. They are known for their sophisticated and well-planned cities, which they burned down every 60 to 80 years to rebuild elsewhere. This mysterious practice has given rise to several questions, including why they burned their homes and what the purpose of this was. Lifestyle and livelihood of the Cucuteni-Trypillian people were primarily based on agriculture, with crops such as wheat, peas, legumes, and barley being the main harvest. They were also hunter-gatherers and had the skills to create pottery and textiles. Women were considered the head of the household and were believed to have had significant roles in the community. Men were involved in activities such as tool-making, animal domestication, and hunting. They believed in a female deity known as the Great Goddess, and there is evidence that the central buildings in their settlements were sanctuaries dedicated to her. This has led to speculation that they might have been following an early form of monotheism. One of the most interesting aspects of their culture was their approach to building structures and settlements. Their multi-story buildings were constructed using wood and lined with ornamental paintings of white and red, with clay altars and benches within. These specific decorations were believed to offer protection to the inhabitants from evil spirits. However, like I said, every 60 to 80 years, they would burn down their cities and rebuild elsewhere. The reason for this is still unknown, and several theories have been proposed. Some believe that it might have been a religious practice, while others think it might have been due to a need for new fertile land or the desire to escape from harmful spirits. The process of building these cities required the use of stone axes and later copper tools to cut down trees for construction. The structures were well constructed and showed evidence of sophisticated planning, making them Europe's first cities built before the great civilizations of the ancient world. They faded into obscurity as their structures were made of wood, which did not survive the test of time. This makes it difficult for modern researchers to understand the full extent of their culture and why they chose to burn down their cities. In conclusion, the Cucuteni-Trypillian culture remains a mystery due to the lack of evidence of their existence and their practice of burning down their cities. However, the evidence that remains suggests that they were a sophisticated and advanced civilization, with a unique approach to building and settling long before their time. Number 8. Atlantis of the Sands. There are many stories in history that describe a towering city in the Arabian desert, which has been named the Lost City of Aram, which there are many different names people have given it, but this was just one. Another name it was given was called the City of Pillars, and they were a wealthy and powerful civilization. They believe this city was located in the Empty Quarter, which is like 6,600,000 square kilometers of barren desert in between the nations of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, and the UAE. What's pretty cool is that this desert area, being one of the most dry and sandy deserts on Earth, even more intense than the Sahara, was actually full of animals and vegetation before the end of the last ice age 11,600 years ago. And from 8,000 to 4,400 BC, the Holocene climatic optimum made the area even more moist, but then the area became very dry and turned into what we know as it today, a desert. And apparently around 620 AD, the city met a catastrophic end and has been later buried beneath the sand of the desert. The Quran and other books mention that Aram was destroyed by an earthquake, although we don't know if the other sources were actually copying the Quran. Another story or theory says that the city was built over a massive limestone deposit in which a sinkhole destroyed a lot of the city and the people moved out. Eventually, the desert then covered the fallen city. Personally, I just find it so fascinating that there have been so many huge and grand cities that are just lost to time, even just on this iceberg, that we still cannot find today. Number 9. The Cannabis Burial Shroud in China. Archaeologists have discovered a 2,500-year-old grave or burial site in China, with the body inside having the apparent features of a white man and also an extraordinary amount of cannabis stored with him. They determined the man was around 35 when he died, and 13 cannabis plants, which were all 3 feet long, were buried with the man. This is the first time an entire plant was found, meaning cannabis was probably freshly grown in the region, which changes what we've previously thought about this location along the Silk Road. They also mentioned that there wasn't enough part of the plant still intact that they could determine that THC wasn't the reason they buried the plants with the man. This also raises questions about the history of the drug and the plant itself, and its open and accepted use thousands of years ago. Obviously, we are aware of the many different uses for this plant, not just with the THC, but it is kind of odd that these plants were buried with this individual and not anywhere else within the region. And number 10, liquid mercury at Teotihuacan. So yeah, apparently they made the pyramids of Teotihuacan from Forza Horizon 5 in real life, so that's kind of cool. But anyways, under the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, archaeologists have discovered a new tunnel and a massive pool of mercury has been found at the end of the tunnel, almost like a lake of mercury. The walls of the chamber were also made of fool's gold, or powdered pyrite, which give the reflective qualities of mercury a sparkling look, almost as an entrance into the underworld through the Mercury Lake or river, or they just wanted the room to look like the cosmos. It would be a pretty cool sight to see when it was built. Overall, we really don't know why they put it in there or how it got in there, but some theories include that this would be the first royal tomb that we have found in Teotihuacan, as other cultures and civilizations also have royalty and divinity associated with Mercury, notably the Egyptians and also the Chinese emperor of Qin Shi Huang, which we talked about earlier in this series. So there's a lot of mystery here. We don't know who this was for, what it was for, why it was made. The only thing we can really look at are the similarities to other ancient civilizations. Mercury seems to have some super special properties that ancient people all over the world who, keep in mind, did not have contact with the Americas, valued. Well, that about wraps up for episode 11. We've got one more video left in this series, and one topic in particular that I'm really looking forward to. If you've watched all of my videos, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun making these. If you're new to the channel, definitely go check out the rest of the playlist. As a reminder, we do have that Discord channel. I would love to chat with you and talk about any theories or any historical ideas that you might have. I also have recently set up a Patreon account, trying to save up so I can buy a new computer instead of editing on this 2012 MacBook so that I can get these videos out faster. So if you want to support the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. If not, I really do just appreciate you watching the videos. So definitely go check those out, but at the very least, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the last part.